In a Netflix studio in New York City, Gary Lineker is standing next to a dartboard wearing a grin he has absolutely no business wearing. The world number one in darts is in the room. The teenager who won 2 world championships before he was old enough to order a beer in America. The man the entire professional circuit considers the most frightening talent the sport of darts has ever produced. Lineker just beat him. The scoreboard is up. Lineker, 327. Luke Littler, 293. The world number one finished dead last in a speed darts challenge against a group of retired footballers and a television presenter. Littler's face says everything his words almost cannot. "I thought so," he admits quietly. "Didn't feel right." And that sentence, delivered with the quiet resignation of a man watching something he cannot explain, is the perfect summary of Luke Littler's entire week in New York. To understand how the world's best darts player ended up losing at darts on a Netflix show, you have to understand who Luke Littler is and what he came to New York to do. 19 years old, born in Warrington. First picked up a set of darts at 3 years old. By 17, he had reached the World Championship final on debut at Alexandra Palace, the sport's most iconic venue, and nearly won it. By 18, he had won it. By 19, he had won it again, this time destroying Gian van Veen's 7-1 in January 2026 in a performance so dominant it barely looked like a contest. Across 2026, he has been close to untouchable. The Premier League title, the UK Open, the World Cup alongside Luke Humphries, representing England in Frankfurt. Luke Littler does not simply win tournaments. He makes winning look like the only possible outcome, right up until the moment something goes wrong. And something always goes wrong in New York. The US Darts Masters is the one title in the World Series of Darts that Littler had never managed to lift. Every other major crown had come his way, but Madison Square Garden, for all his obvious love of the venue, had never given him that trophy. And this year, 2026, felt like his best chance to finally change that. The final on the evening of June the 26th was, by any honest measure, one of the best matches the World Series had ever produced. Littler opened with a surge that looked terminal for his opponent, 4-1. The crowd of 5,000 inside the Infosys Theater roaring with every throw. Luke Humphries, the defending champion, looked like a man fighting a tide he could not hold back. But Humphries is not the kind of player who accepts that conclusion. He won 4 straight legs. Littler steadied. The match went to a deciding leg at 7 apiece, and in that final leg, Humphries produced an 11-dart finish that sealed the title and sent the darts world into a frenzy. The New York trophy stayed exactly where it was, out of Littler's hands. For most 19-year-olds, losing a high-quality World Series final to the world number 2 would be a decent week. For Littler, it registered as exactly one thing: a loss. And the week was not finished with him yet. Because the FIFA World Cup had come to America that summer, and in the middle of all of it, a Netflix production had set up in New York. The show was called The Rest is Football. Gary Lineker, Alan Shearer, and Micah Richards running daily World Cup coverage from a studio that was significantly more suited to football than tungsten. Someone had the idea that Luke Littler should come on and attempt the show's Speed Darts Challenge. On paper, this is straightforward. The world number one, fresh from competing at Madison Square Garden, shows a football audience what darts looks like in professional hands. Easy content. Nobody loses. Then came the context that changed everything. The challenge had been running all week. Other guests had already taken their turns at the board. Ian Poulter, the Ryder Cup golfer, one of the most mentally steely competitors in any sport, had posted 317. Gordon Ramsay, whose precision is usually reserved for reducing sauces in a professional kitchen rather than hitting treble 20s in a television studio, had scored 303. Frank Lampard and Ali McCoist had both managed 298. None of them are darts players. None of them practice on a board. None of them have spent years building the muscle memory that makes a professional darts player able to find the same millimeter of wire hundreds of times a night. Littler should have walked in and set a number that ended the conversation permanently. But one more detail had arrived before he picked up a dart. Juan Mata was in the room. If you follow football, you know exactly who Juan Mata is. Years at Manchester United, one of the most technically precise midfielders of his generation. The kind of player United supporters talk about with real warmth. And Luke Littler, the world number one in darts, the teenager who has handled hostile Alexandra Palace crowds and deciding legs at Madison Square Garden without blinking, is a lifelong Manchester United fan. Having Juan Mata watch you throw darts on a Netflix stage in New York is a completely different category of pressure from a World Championship final. It should not matter. But it does, because sport is sport and nerves arrive from directions nobody plans for. Lineker understood the assignment immediately. The clock started and he leaned in. "No pressure, Luke," he said, with the energy of a man who had already decided how this was going to end. The darts flew. The legs finished. The score came up. 327. Gary Lineker, television presenter, former England striker, a man whose last competitive throwing action was probably hailing a cab in the 1990s, had just scored 327 points in a speed darts challenge. Littler's total arrived. 293. Last place. Below Lineker. Below Ramsey. Below Lampard, McCoist, and Poulter. The best darts player on the planet, in the week that Madison Square Garden had already taken his trophy, had just been outscored at darts by a group of people who do not play darts. He took it as well as anyone could in that situation. "Hang your head in shame," he told Lineker. Lineker smiled the smile of a man who had just won something he will be talking about for years. The clip spread across darts and football social media within hours. Because this is the thing about Luke Littler that the sport sometimes forgets in the relentless coverage of his achievements and his averages and his trophy count. He is 19 years old. He is a human being who loses darts challenges to Gary Lineker on Netflix shows when Juan Mata is watching. He processes his own humiliation with the same directness he processes everything else. He called it out, he took the laugh, and he moved on. That is actually why the darts world is so attached to him, beyond what he does at the hockey. Because moments like this are real. The week in New York was real. The final loss to Humphries was real. The Netflix disaster was real. And none of it will stop him from turning up in Blackpool on July the 18th for the World Match Play, the next major on the calendar, and throwing at that board with the same quiet intensity he brings to every session. The one place Luke Littler is never beaten is the one place that actually counts. Gary Lineker can have New York. The World Match Play trophy is another matter entirely. If you want to keep up with every twist and shock in professional darts this summer, subscribe now. Blackpool is coming, and after a week like this, Littler will have something to prove.